on down, please. Jenny, are we live? We are live on the stick cam. So for those of you who want to be more famous, you can go wave in front of the camera. Come on down, everybody, come on down. Hector, if you could dim the lights in the house a little bit, I think that might hurt you if you want to be quiet. Okay, we're starting this. I'm doing it. We're starting it. Everybody, please settle down. Please settle down. We have some exciting things to talk about. My name is Drew Baldwin, and this is...
Hi guys, Mark Husabet from Tubefilter. Thanks for coming, guys. Seriously, this couldn't be like I've never been more excited for a Meetup topic, partly because of how awesomely controversial it was. And this, I really, all the credit goes to Drew for pulling this all together. Look, I think that we're at a point in the web video where we have to start talking honestly about these things, or else we're not really going to get anywhere. So, like, I hope tonight we have a civil but also informative discussion about really what's going on in the video space. There are rules of the game, and there are people that are at the edges of the rules of the game. And some of that might be in the spirit of the game, and some of it isn't. So we'll find out from our panelists where some of these things lie. Yeah, so enjoy. There'll be questions after the panel, so please think of a good question, and I'll come around with the mic.
Yeah, Mark's going to be down in the crowd, taking questions. And of course, we're taking questions from our thousands of viewers online on Stickcam. Thanks very much, Stickcam, for promoting us. Whoop, whoop. And, well, I'm going to do a little bit of my housekeeping, and then we're going to also invite a special friend up on stage first. Yes, okay, so I'd like to invite to the stage Maggie, who is the CEO of King of the Web. For those of you, we've been playing a little video up on the screen there. Hector, well, if you don't mind restarting it. Maggie's going to have a few remarks about what King of the Web is. And I'll take it from here.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to be your awkward corporate sponsor tonight and make you wait until you get to see the real show. I want to start by saying that I have a little confession to make, and that is that largely my background is in digital marketing. So I've spent a huge chunk of my career building businesses like Atlas, which track advertising, and Razorfish, which promote big brands online. And, oh, we got a woo and ask for Razorfish, that's awesome. And also sell digital advertising. And so part of me is really excited for this conversation tonight because it's an old conversation, one that is about where the fine line of promotion and marketing meets the ugliness of deception. And in the biggest of platforms, we still struggle to figure that out. By the way, there's some images of King of the Web over there in case you missed it. And now in my new life, I'm building a website that is in fact all about promoting and rewarding organic online content. Quite the opposite of heavy-duty promotion and marketing. In fact, King of the Web is what we like to refer to as an entertainment democracy. The popular vote rules. The king is the person who persuades. There's our king this month, by the way. Kutra, in case any of you are gamers. And last month, John Kozart. Or I should say last 2 weeks, actually. And we think a lot about being a democracy and what kind of guidelines are required, if any, when popular vote rules. Very different than YouTube has become, frankly, which is you come to King of the Web to promote your personality or your brand of entertainment or your ideals or anything inspiring for that matter, because we're a little bit digital entertainment and we're a little bit launchpad for any inspiring idea. And you let the web vote. But even in the purest of democracies, people will harness the platform in ways that may not be legal, or at least, and more likely, may not be perceptually fair. And we deal with that all the time at King. Some of the comments you see up there are actually folks being happy and also very mad at us simultaneously. Very mad at us. And so we always are struggling with where is that fine line between offering some rules and guidelines, but squashing the creative use of the platform. So tonight, both as somebody who's been on the big company, big marketer side of things, and someone who now has a small business that relies purely on an entertainment democracy to see things rise to the top, I'm very curious to hear this panel address things like, are YouTube views really sacred? Is there a way for us to harness these platforms and promotional ideas without sullying or souring the potential of how it started, which is the organic content creator? Can we actually find a balance between those two things? Because remember, we have a very symbiotic relationship as creators with the advertising industry. In many cases, they financially pave the way for the technologies that we have come to rely on to launch our own businesses. So hopefully it's a little bit of a witch hunt, but also a true intellectual conversation about what is the balance and what are the ethics of marketing, what's right and wrong. So with that, and Will, if you need a devil's advocate, you got me. I can spar with you a little bit. Thank you. With that, I will stop talking too much about tonight's panel and let them do it. But please visit King of the Web. We're super excited about it. I know there's a ton of talented people in the room tonight. We'd love to see you all launch your ideas and your talents and your personalities there. Don't look at the screen now, because that's a bad picture. And we would really love to see a pure democracy take hold when it comes to entertainment and see what that does and see what we open up to as an industry in terms of what entertains us and inspires us. So thank you and enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much, Maggie. King of the Web is, if you've seen Mark's blog, and we've talked a little bit about, we're really big fans of them, not just because they make this all possible, but because what they're doing is something that we really are behind. How many of you out there have heard of King of the Web prior to this meetup? By show of, not by show of hands, by show of sound. Now, how many people have heard of King of the Web? Yeah! Right? Yeah, see how that worked? Right? We're doing a good job. I also wanted to thank Snap Yourself, who has a photo booth over here, and they do some great, just go over there and check it out. The greatest thing about it is you have this little remote control, so that, you know how you always try to get that mid-air, like, photo? You can do it, because it's in your hand now. So please do that, and there's some special requests out there. I think they really would like Phil DeFranco to stop that. And I also wanted to thank our other sponsors, Placevine, Blip TV, SAG New Media, it's been a long supporter, all of them actually have been long supporters of Tubefilter. And our media sponsors, NAPI, WGA, and PGA, the Media Council. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all the support. How many of you out there have posted a video on YouTube? You're kidding. How many of you have yet to try it? Okay, cool. Welcome. And how many of you have attended one of our meetups before? And how many of you are about to try it? Great, okay. So for those of you who haven't come, there's just a few ground rules. One, it's very acoustically challenging sometimes, especially on stage. So especially if you're in the back, you start whispering, Mark the Sheriff's gonna come out there and tell you guys to be quiet because the sound really carries, it's very distracting. The panel's gonna be about 45 minutes. We have a Q&A, so make sure that you find Mark and get those questions in. I'm sure you have plenty. And we're gonna get started. So please, panelists, you know who I'm talking about. William Hyde, TheWillofDC, Benny and Rafi Fine, the Fine Brothers. Come on up, these are rock stars. And we'll get it started. Hey, Mark, I'm going to hand you the mic. Thanks. You good? Okay. I was kind of nervous about that intro.
You did well.
There's a lot of famous YouTubers out there now. Whew. Okay, great. Energy. So, we've got WillofDC, otherwise known as the Sheriff of YouTube, I read in a comment.
Thank you for inventing that. That's nice. I should have
It was in a comment. They
sheriff.
said Will for Sheriff of YouTube, and I said, can I call you that? And you said, all right, fine. So, you are now the Sheriff of YouTube. And then we have Benny and Rappy Fine, the Fine brothers. And all three of you are pretty long-standing YouTubers. When did you first get a channel on YouTube? Well,
Oh, we're talking. I started my channel in March of 2006.
2006. Anyone out there beat that date?
The guys next to me.
Yeah. And who else?
We were around before YouTube, so right around the first few months it started, I think we made an account, but we weren't sure what it was yet. So it took us a little bit longer to embrace it.
When was that?
That was in 2005 when it launched. We've been online since 2004.
Wow.
But our first YouTube account, which some people know, was deleted, and we've never gotten
Suspended.
it back to.
Was that Raven's State?
It was.
Yeah. And it's they've never given it back to us.
Really?
Yeah. And it was because of like flagged content, I guess, like that was the racy content, which I love that like we make kids react now and stuff, and people that know like some of the stuff that we tend to make earlier in our career. But I think the YouTube had a system back then that was a little more like quick to just flag your videos, and then if you had 3, it was gone. You couldn't do anything about it. And that's when we were happy because we actually started more the smarter account of being the Fine Brothers and not some random Raven steak name.
That's right. We had Reckless Tortuga on the panel before, and he was like, well, that was a name that we might not have wanted to take.
Exactly.
But now everyone's heard of it. So, what was the first video?
Where are we going? For us, we
Yes, you answer this
came
time.
to the
Yeah.
web with a trilogy.
The first YouTube
First
video.
YouTube video?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't remember what it was.
And where can we find the archive content from Raven?
You can. I think my memory of it was a Mother's Day video. Might have been the first video we uploaded to YouTube. It was a 40-second long video of a woman crying in the bathroom, seeing that she was pregnant, and then putting a knife to her wrist. And then it said Happy
I
Mother's
have no
Day.
idea why they took that
Then it said
down.
Happy Mother's Day at the end.
Brand friendly. I like it.
Okay, so these fellas are complete rock stars, and they've seen it all, let's just put it that way. And they're also very passionate about this subject. We're talking about creative online marketing. Also, from the sensational title, cheaters. But what we're talking about here is something that's very particular to YouTube, and it really, like Mark said in his excellent introduction, is so good at those introductions. This really gets to the heart of YouTube and what that value is for the creator, for the producer, for anyone else who's using YouTube as a marketing platform. And along this topic of cheating, creative, boundary pushing marketing, I think we're going to try to get an understanding of really what YouTube is, hopefully. And so I wanted to start out really just have you guys react to this idea of cheating and what it is to you, sort of in the abstract. Then we'll get into the details. And I promised that we were going to get down and dirty with some creative cheating. But first, I just wanted to talk about what is it about this that makes it so contentious.
I think, for years our main problem has been that there's no designation of the different types of views that are, I guess, out there. And my problem is that I've seen way too often the people using the ability to get what they considered a view, that they're able to use that to lure advertisers, to lessen the people that actually have a real audience that are coming back every week and watching their content and actually having a loyal following. Similar almost like television watches a show, they were able to talk and value that view that they were getting that was maybe just an autoplay or a random user-initiated click from some website that people didn't even know what they were clicking on, and they value it equally to what we've been trying to build as and what we consider as the most substantial view. I don't know if substantial is the right word, but so the problem has been for us is that it's delegitimized, I think, YouTube, where we embraced it very early as somewhere that was going to be the place that the subscription won. We were on so many websites and we were waiting to see which website is going to figure out and how this works and how they're going to retain viewers and come back every week to your content.
And when we saw that YouTube did that, and it was very saddening at the same time to see everybody devalue the idea of being on YouTube, when we saw that this was the only place you actually were getting true viewership. And I think the true viewership, that's like how you define that. But that's for me, of what happened is that we saw that business and everything was going away from the people that we thought it was supposed to be coming to. And I think it's still a problem today where a lot of people still cheat their way to getting these views that result in lessening the value of what we are building, which I feel are the closest to what advertisers should be wanting in a view.
Well, are views and quality linked in any way, would you say?
No, not necessarily. I think it's more about engaging and building an audience regardless of whether you're a vlogger or you're a more serialized content creator like we are. Like if you're, it's not necessarily quality, it's just people that actually want to watch and are watching you purposely, not autoplaying or not cheating. Without, for me, and I've said this for a long time, without transparency, new media is not going to grow as fast as it could. And I feel like we're growing so fast now, and yet we're still so much in our infancy, and I think we could be a lot farther along if there was transparency to understand that, you know, whatever, I'll just arbitrarily throw numbers out there, that, you know, 500,000 views that are from someone that clearly has an audience, which you can easily see from various analytics and comments and engagement on it, is valued to something. And then if you just have 500,000 views that someone bought, that no one actually watched, and if the next episode of that came out and you didn't do whatever it is that you did to get that 500,000 views, they're all gone. And so where are we going? How do you build businesses? How do you build fan bases and audience and make the advertisers, the same systems that work in traditional media that have become standardized, whether or not things like Nielsen are completely transparent in their own right, there is a standard. That, you know, there isn't the idea that someone is cheating to get views on an NBC show, but the internet has always been ripe with it on YouTube and off YouTube. You know, there's giant amounts of web series that don't use YouTube that claim to have millions of views, and I'll flatly say they're completely lying. And much of the people in this space will raise those people up when really we have to understand the difference between what are those views in order to move the space forward.
Yeah, it's not really about, you know, the videos that get the most views or the best quality, it's what's most popular. And if we don't really have a set definition of what's popular, then how are we really going to understand our space and what drives it? Because, like, exactly like you said, 500,000 views bought against 500,000 views earned does nothing for anybody but confuse and really distort the whole system.
Well, you know, we've been talking over the last year about online video marketing. We started by talking about your YouTube partner, Now What? We talked about social video marketing. We talked about how to market your video beyond YouTube. If you have a great video that's really compelling, shouldn't you just put it on YouTube and then it will just earn millions of views because it's so great?
No.
Did that ever happen though?
Not really. I mean, I
What
guess.
about this viral video I hear about all the time?
What is
Through the series of
The reason why I'm asking this is because I think there's a conception there that, even though like I was obviously being facetious, there is some truth to that. If something is great, then so many people will watch it. But the way that the snowball effect works on YouTube, and the way things are featured, the view suddenly becomes a measurement of quality and something else. And that's what I want to get to the core of, because I don't know how many people in the audience, at this, you know, the conversation may have already gotten too advanced. So I'm going to quickly just say something. On YouTube, when you post a video, the amount of views that the video gets is recorded right there underneath the video. That number is very important and sacred, because if there's a lot of views, 800 million, right? 8 million, 800,000, then that means something about the popularity. And in fact, YouTube curates a lot of videos based on that type of performance. So the question, what we're arguing and talking about now is that sometimes those views aren't purely organic. It isn't just people watching and sharing. There's a lot of influences beyond simply the quality and the popularity and the compelling nature of the content itself. So, just to get you all up to speed, now, what are people doing? What are people doing to get these views
Well, it depends.
An unscrupulous guy.
Are we going back in time to 2006 and talking about auto refreshing, or are we talking?
I think
How far back?
let's do a little history of the YouTube. Like, I'm sure YouTube's responded to this because, like you said, brands want to connect with audiences, and if it's false number of eyeballs, then it's.
I think there is a very specific idea of YouTube, non-YouTube, and that's the thing, because YouTube won out, you kind of can track the history of like what people were doing in various ways, but like it was something that we even knew from like all the other websites. You could kind of break down as they were trying to stand themselves out. Like we figured out just from our own like being like, okay, like how is this popular, that I'm not naming names, but there was a website out there that had just launched, a really big comedy website that just launched. It was literally every refresh was like 3 views. It was just like you literally upload something on private and then you literally just hit refresh and it would say 3. It was then 6, and so that's non-YouTube, but like that's even the example of like these various websites.
You can build things into websites that make every view count as 3 every time someone watches it in the counter.
Yeah, but I'd say YouTube, you go back and yes, YouTube used to have a system where you could just refresh the video and it would count it as a view. I mean,
that was on YouTube.
That was on YouTube, they did that, and it was...
How do you know that? Did you do that?
I think that just like how I just said what I did for another video, we have not auto-refreshed our views on YouTube. I can honestly say that.
Oh, wow.
But it's just the idea that you were able to see it actually happen. You were able to see the idea of people, and especially with things like, one of the major ways that YouTube, I think, stood up, and I don't know, maybe you know a different scenario. For us, one of the major things that we saw as YouTube going, okay, we've got to stop this, is we had a somewhat popular MySpace page, and we started seeing people, like, in our comments, would take like 20 tiny embeds from YouTube and leave a comment with 20 embeds playing on autoplay, and then we would see, and you could see this from the insight on YouTube. If the there were no partners, if the user was dumb enough to leave their insight up for you to watch, when they were cheating, you could click on a button where you could see where views are coming from if they don't hide it, and you would see that like all of a sudden you'd have 200,000 views from, what was one of the MySpaces?
There was a web series that was out there that got millions of views this way.
Huge press, as multi-million viewed web series.
And you could look at their insight before they got wise and turned it off, and there would be 200,000 views from the Samantha Ronson MySpace page.
Wait, so sorry, excuse me. The insight is something that you could publicly see, anyone can see.
If you turn
If
it
they've
off,
enabled it.
it was still enabled. And they left it on, so you could see that they were getting hundreds of thousands
And they
of views
had,
from celebrity MySpace.
I think they would get around like 1 million views, and they'd have around 10 comments. And again, this was like major press in Wall Street Journal and New York Times, the biggest web series ever, like oh my god, and it's like, do some research, please.
Oh, so that's why you're doing it. The reason why you want to inflate the number of views you have is what?
Is to stand out. I mean, Avril Lavigne is the perfect example when, I guess like 2006 it was, where she had a music video out, and she herself, like her team, created a website where every 5 seconds the website would automatically refresh, and they had all of their fans, and they would send it out to their fan club. Just click this link and leave it open on your browser and go to school, and it'll build millions and millions and millions and millions of
That was
views.
the goal.
And she was number one, that music video was number 1 most viewed on YouTube of all time for a long time.
I think, like I said earlier, it's her talent.
Yeah, super talented.
She put herself out there, and the universe came. But that's very interesting because there seems to be a big value, though. There's a big value to views because it's something.
Because for that video being up there, people probably bought the CD. People probably like bought the singles and stuff. That probably made her a lot of money, but subverted the idea of online video to a huge extent.
Because you get that legitimate press, that press that you can't pay for, that editorial.
Well, I couldn't even tell you how many meetings we were in back when we were like getting around 60 to 100,000 views of video, and we would go and have these executive meetings with like major studios to like figure out if we could make help with the campaign and all that. And they would literally just go, you know, we would talk to them, being like, we can make this amazing series that's about supplemental content for your new movie that's coming out. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be huge. And they literally would look at us and just go, that's great that you guys can actually like promise this amount of views and stuff, but I can literally just go to like these other people that say that they can get me 1 million views. I'm like, but that's not real. That's literally like you're just a billboard. You're literally just going by a highway and you see a billboard. That's not a view for that television show. You literally need to watch that content on television. And so that's something that we were dealing with for years, where we were not getting work and we were not being able to build our business because literally we just have all these people in the space just saying that they're getting millions of views when obviously they're not. But what is an advertiser knowing better? And also for those people that there's a perception of, I guess you can get 1 million views. However I have to do it and I have to appease my boss, I guess I'll just do that versus my boss thinking I only got like 100,000 views. But if the 100,000 is real and that's what you can actually achieve, you're not really achieving 1 million views. And there should be a full discussion. I have no idea what advertisers really think for some of these shows that come out that they're major sponsors.
And they're not a commercial. And they're not a commercial because there's merit to be said about ad buys and impressions, and that certain advertisers just want their advertisement to be seen or somewhat engaged with in this X amount of times. 2 million is my ad buy. I need to hit those impressions. And it's just a commercial, just like it is watching a commercial on TV. They don't necessarily care if you sat there and engaged with it and really watched it. They just wanted you to hear their name somewhere. The difference is when a brand is attaching for branded entertainment or making a branded web series that is like very specifically sponsored, and you know that one would think, though I wish I had someone that is from one of these advertising companies that have funded one of these things, that sit them down and be like, do you realize that every view is a lie? And see if they care, because maybe they don't. It is possible that there's an advertiser that literally says, yes, I might have put this into a web series format, but I don't care that no one really watched it, I just want my ad impressions. But I have a feeling they want the idea that they made a show, they were part of an experience, and it's resulted in lots of advertisers not trusting anything because some of them get wise to it and are like, I'm only gonna pay this much now because I can't trust anything on the internet. Or it's continuing to fund the wrong people, the wrong companies, and the wrong shows that can still continue these incorrect case studies that put all of us behind.
Now, you made a distinction that I thought was very smart. There's a difference between when the content is the product and when the video is selling another product. Because like if I have something that I want to sell, let's say I want people to come see a movie, or if I'm trying to sell a consumer product, and I want everyone to know that. So by any means possible, I want to just saturate as many people. That's very different than if the actual show itself, or the content itself, or perhaps even if it's branded content, is the product, right? The show is the thing that you're trying to sell. Then that view really, it means something, because that view should mean it has some value relationship with the property, right? If it's really, a lot of people are tuning in and sharing and talking about this, then it must be very good content, right? But that's completely confused with, I don't care if the content's good, it's an ad. What I really want is people to buy this product or go see this other thing. Then we saturate it. But then what happens is that gets very confused. And I think, like you said, we need to have a bigger discussion about this. I want to just get back to the MySpace thing. So you take a big popular MySpace page.
Years ago, there's no such thing now.
And you can, yeah, MySpace was this, okay, so this is something called MySpace. It was, anybody could comment, right, on the MySpace page?
Yeah, I think we ended up turning off.
You could disable,
because
just timeout, so they couldn't do this. But if you didn't, you could autoplay YouTube videos before
and
YouTube
that counted.
stopped it, and it used to count.
Which, for
That's why MySpace pages took forever to load, because everybody was.
There were so many. Well, actually, like I mean, skipping ahead, you do have a scenario right now where YouTube has embraced the idea that kind of like that. We turned off our comments because of that. We were approving comments because we were like, we're not going to allow these people to use our MySpace to get themselves views. We actually similarly do that right now on YouTube with the TrueView ads, which is this pre-roll on YouTube, and there's 2 types of pre-roll that you can have for video. One that is just quick format, like 15 to 30 seconds, and then there's 30 seconds and above, and that's TrueView. And TrueView, that's when you see you can skip this ad in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A lot of the time these days, YouTube is allowing for movie studios and various people to put an ad in there that is a movie trailer, and if you let that play, it actually is counting as a view on their YouTube video of that trailer that's up. So for me, I don't want to be helping a company that is basically buying their way into the ad space on YouTube to get themselves views and not actually getting a real view. So we actually literally do not have TrueView on our videos.
That's interesting. As a side note, autoplay doesn't count anymore for YouTube. Okay? In fact, on an embedded video,
Well, certain types of autoplay don't count. Certain types do count.
okay, I'm sorry. An embedded video autoplay doesn't count.
Unless you have an API where you're tweaking the system.
Oh, we're gonna get into some advanced mojo in a minute. Before we get there, though, like, you know, if you click on an embedded view, like Tubefilter, we embed videos all the time, try to help out some of the viewership of the people we cover. And though, you know, and then YouTube has now initiated like a link back system where on the video page on YouTube it'll say as seen on Tubefilter. You see it's all over YouTube, as seen on Tubefilter. You get sick of seeing it. Actually, not quite as much as we want, but there's still ways around it, right? So YouTube's responded by that. What else do you see happening that are?
Are we continuing the history, or are we just going through the present?
Oh no, please continue the history.
Because right now, I think that the big discussion we're having is an ad of you or is a view of you, and I think that it's it's an important discussion to be had because, like I said, when you've got the true view pre-rolls and those are just feeding into views that people aren't earning legitimately, the amazing thing about YouTube is how much it changes. But again, the bad side of that is how it seems like every month or so there's a new way of kind of gaming the system where, in the past where, we talk about autoplaying, but then also kind of, giveaways for views and giveaways for favorites, and people used to abuse the algorithm to get higher in lists from what they did. But I think most of all of that has gone away, and now it's just, what does a view really represent to someone? And if you're tricking the algorithm through advertising buys, then what does it really say about the democracy of online video?
Well, I'd even say that it's interesting that on YouTube, that used to be a place that was, like we were talking about before, full of the same types of cheating you see everywhere back in its infancy. It was as bad as any site and as untrustworthy as any site, but they've taken so many steps over the years to curb this over and over again. It's a little bit interesting that they're now, this TrueView thing is the first time in a while that I've seen, this is a little bit iffy of YouTube to do. But the fact that everyone's having to take so much time to try to find all these ways to game just YouTube is interesting to talk about. Something that we've been championing for a long time. There's lots of different things out there, but YouTube is where content is living. That it has one out, at least right now, that's where it is. And all these other places, really just the broad spectrum of cheating, I would go far to say that for the most part, everywhere else you have is much more suspect. YouTube actually does the best job of anywhere to be curbed this, to the point that there's companies that have come out to try to find workarounds or various things that partners do to try to find their own ways to rework all of these safeguards versus the Wild West that it still is, but it's much more wild everywhere else, which again, I'll go back to the idea of branded content on other sites. If you're not on YouTube and you have huge viewership, to me, currently it is a total red flag. And if any of you out there make content for other people and think that you're getting tons and tons of views for some reason, I don't know, one or the other, you've really got to check certain things in terms of, is there blog posts about your content? Do you have comments on your video? Because a lot of these places hide your views.
People on Twitter and Tumblr talking about it?
Because if they're not, then your views are not real.
Yeah, how do you spot fake?
Well, if it's YouTube specifically, you can tell by no comments,
no
ratings. That's a very quick way, and of course, again, just click on that insight thing because
sometimes they show that they got 500,000 views from an ad. They'll even show you.
Yeah, it says view from. YouTube has a statistic of view from ad, and you can see. And if you go to the right videos, before YouTube just changed. You would see these videos pop up that were just the ratings were just horrible because the YouTube community was just fake, buying your views. And if you went into their insight, you actually saw 600,000 views from ad. And it states it right there for you. So that was a very easy way to kind of see that idea. Other websites, all you have to do is do a Google search of that show, go onto Facebook, you can literally type in anything into Facebook, and see if the video of that video is being shared. Isn't that the way it works, or is it only your personal videos that goes that way? I know that we check to see if one of our videos is going more viral on Facebook or not. You can check up on the tweets, and if there's nothing, then how could you possibly have anybody watching if there's no comments? And well, okay, if you're not on YouTube, then you basically have these other websites that mostly every other website there is out there don't show their views. Red flag. Why would you not show your views if you're not going to be happy about them and you're not wanting to actually gloat about how many views you have? It means because you are trying to hide the fact and say whatever number you want. that's why you do it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make the distinction of the conversation that we're having here of, you know, the perspective that I think we share of very much YouTube community and the faith of the YouTube community and the partner program and then the integrity of it all, and then kind of the business side of things where, you know, the companies out there now that are doing these ad buys and, you know, 5.5 cents per view, and so, you know, if you've got $55,000, you can get 1 million views. But for a normal YouTuber, a normal member of the YouTube community, that's not an option. If you're, you know, a massive movie studio where $55,000 means nothing to you, then you can just buy out the homepage effectively and, you know, appease, I guess, your bosses, but your product isn't really legitimately getting viewed by anyone. If anything, people are just ticked off that you're advertising something that they don't want to see.
Explain me exactly, if I had $55,000, how could I be a YouTube sensation? Walk me
You
through.
need a lot more than that. You have to do it over and over and over again for like 6 months.
But like, how would I, who would I, like, how, not who, sorry, I didn't ask that
Who?
question. How would I spend that money? Like, how would it work?
You would find a company that has a platform for ad buying, put your views out, and they would go to viral kind of websites that are in blog nature that get a lot of traffic, whether from picture posts, from video posts, and you would buy out their, you know, ad content inventory, and then someone would look at, you know, a lolcat or something, and all of a sudden you hear a sound playing through your computer, but you didn't click on anything, and you scroll down your page, and oh, look, there's an ad playing on that. Or, you know, websites, we were talking earlier about how, you know, don't watch copyrighted material legally, but there are websites out there that stream copyrighted material legally, and they make a lot of money off of these little YouTube API autoplayed ads that count as views, and you just
Wait, API, I'm sorry, I thought that autoplays didn't count for views.
Some of them do. If you can tweak an API to put on a website, and that will count.
You can make it act like it's a user-initiated view. And one of the main things even that people do is that, like,
Say that again.
you can use the YouTube API, and you know, I can say that it's not like I have any idea how to do this, so like I could not tell you how you work, and YouTube does work to not allow these things to happen, but it's obvious from sites that like I've frequented and I've seen ads pop up that I'm like, that's a YouTube video. And there's two ways. There's one where you see it inside of an ad that pops up on the lower side of your page. It's like you can X out, and it's like, oh, that's a YouTube ad. And you can kind of track it back, and you get to see that it's a YouTube ad. But even more so, I see the things of interstitial ads, where literally you're on a website that, well, pop-up and interstitial. Pop-up, where it's just pop-up, everybody knows what that is. Interstitial is when you're on like a website that all of a sudden, while you're wanting to read that article, all of a sudden it makes you go to another page. And I've seen multiple top YouTubers literally, I am now on their YouTube page watching a video, and then I have to click a button that says, bring me back to where I was.
Oh, I got you. Like, so like if you were reading an article and it said page 2 of the article, click on page 2, and then you'd see a video.
No,
and then you go.
Interstitial ads work that like you're just on. I don't want to see the websites that usually on the have interstitial. That's just part of their ad business. It's not like they're cheating, but there's websites where you're there, you're reading, and while you're reading, it just automatically just refreshes you to another page, and you have to click a button to bring you back to
I
it.
see. Oh, clever.
So that brings you to a YouTube page, and so obviously that's going to count as a view.
That's just
because
the
you're on a
automatic
YouTube
ways.
Oh, because if you go to a homepage and a video plays, that counts.
Yeah, and big brands or big channels that are corporations will make dummy YouTube accounts until they get suspended sometimes that because you can autoplay any video you want in your account right now. You can autoplay my video right now and I'll get views off of your page. So they'll make a dummy account or 50 dummy accounts with their
100 dummy accounts?
With the same video in, it goes across all those advertisements as interstitial ads, and then you get hundreds of thousands of views.
And so that's because the philosophy behind that is if you're going to a YouTube channel, you want to watch a video. So of course that can be counted as an autoplay because you're going there to watch it.
Yeah.
And now what you're saying is people are being directed to YouTube pages that they don't necessarily want to view.
They weren't even on YouTube. I'm just going to add on, it's an interesting thing because when you see it done by even some big corporation that have channels that are so successful, that's where you even get a more interesting conversation because the idea of supplementing views with the idea that you do have a real audience, and you might be able to get 500,000 views legit, but you have an advertiser that is involved with the content in some way, even if it is just a light integration, and to satisfy their ad buy, you're like, well, I need to guarantee 1.5 million. But I have a real audience, and I have tens of thousands of comments on it, but I'm not going to be able to get 1.5 million, so I'm going to supplement it with all these pop-ups. And that's why sometimes you'll see even respected companies do this, because they need more. And that goes back to the earlier conversation of the differences, and if an advertiser wants both, is there a conversation to be had that, well, okay, if you need to have both and you know that half of it's fake, does that really matter? Not to the advertiser necessarily.
But if an advertiser is just going to do a media buy, why go through all this
It depends.
YouTube, like,
Well, it's not
page
YouTube. It's not YouTube.
Or
It's just do you want to view or not? And right now, YouTube is a place that you can actually guarantee yourself that you can look at a bunch of people. You can be working with specific pages, from vloggers to major corporations. They can guarantee you true subscribed viewers, like that they actually come and watch it. And then there are, other, so we shouldn't say YouTube. I know we always end up talking about YouTube because YouTube almost has become video. So when you say YouTube, I even think of, well, you're saying the word video. It's pretty much the same thing at that point, because if you're pretty much anywhere else, sans like you have your own very popular website, there's like you're on YouTube, that's where you get views.
Because that's where the audience is.
That's where the audience is, and that's where you actually, it's the idea even of other companies that spring up that like are wanting to get people to be aware of them, because they're, King of the Web is a good example that they very much embrace. Yes, I mentioned that. They're a very good example of like they're embracing the idea of trying to bring, like they realize that to get traffic and bring people, to make people aware of their company that's video based, is to get YouTubers who have a real audience to invest their time into their website. And there's been a lot of people that have done that. Take 180, whatever. Lots of people that have invested time to make sure that they're like, you know what? People are on YouTube. Those are the places that actually people watch video. So if I'm doing video, I better invest in people that are on YouTube, because that's where the viewing audience is. So if I'm wanting to get views on my website, I better embrace the people that watch video online. And how do you do that? You go to YouTube.
But it circles back to the devaluation of all of this, because of the fact that so many brands have been either lied to, or they think they're getting these huge, ridiculous amounts of views over and over and over again, that when it cascades down and they do reach out to the people like us, we end up at a lower grade. There's like less money because, oh, you're just on YouTube, or you're just, I don't know where your views are coming from because I work with somebody else. So it all works in this cycle that overall, with the value of real viewership, which in a lot of ways is the most valuable viewership that entertainment has ever had, because we have real analytics and you really know your demo and you know that people are watching and that they're coming back, and sometimes it is the same people. Things that television do not give you. Yet the advertisers are completely confused for correct reasons because of all of these things, and I think a lot of them don't even know. And there's tons of companies that have their entire businesses, or production companies that make entire web series over and over and over again, that just feed into the system and keep pulling the wool over advertisers' eyes over and over and over again. And we need to be stopping this and make them understand the difference between the views.
How does YouTube make money?
Well, YouTube makes money through a lot of different means. I mean, if you're talking about just where video views and stuff come from, it's every YouTube partner, not just partners with YouTube, they partner with Google, because obviously Google owns YouTube, and then the AdSense program, and so the rate of CPM and RPM for how much an advertiser pays into YouTube for an ad versus how much a user earns from someone watching the ad or clicking the ad. And so, but what's interesting about the whole argument when people look at how much it costs to get the amount of views, that's why this would never benefit anyone other than a massive corporation who's already dumping millions and millions of advertising dollars into TV, movie, radio, print, all that other kind of stuff, is that you're never going to make a profit off of buying views the way the rate current is, because the RPM there just will not make you a profit off of, if it costs $55,000 to get you 1 million views, you're not getting $55,000 of AdSense money in any way whatsoever. So it's, no YouTuber would ever want to take advantage of this because they're never going to be able to afford it. And it's just, how much is it worth to massive, media companies to buy these fake views to satisfy their marketing department when they're not really, like we've said the entire time, they're not legitimate views. If I was a company, it would seem logical sense to me that I would want I'd rather take 500,000 people who comprehended my message than 1 million people who probably didn't even think about it because it was an ad to them and they shut off their brain where they're like, this is mad, I'm not even gonna know what the title of the product is.
Yeah, I guess what I meant, that's what I want to follow up on my question is, hey guys in the back, can you be quiet please? Is YouTube makes money off of viewership, right? So how hard are they going to fight against techniques that bring more viewers? That's the question. Like
that is the question. How hard are they going to fight against techniques that bring fake viewers? It's their business sense balancing out them earning half the revenue of AdSense versus, you know, our site is now delegitimized and the views on our site are looked at as less than real. I mean, it's their business versus community mindset. It's what the shareholders want at the end of the day, though.
The value of the view diminishes. Then
the value of the partner diminishes. The value of the space diminishes.
The price of the advertising goes down.
Well, even the value of, I mean, I think that, you know, for all the YouTube kind of, who knows, like I think there's some people that even talk about like, you know, Google didn't really know what they were buying into with YouTube back in the day, but I think that that's even the idea of the reason why YouTube has had to be so legitimate is that, like, I mean, how often do you hear about, like, you know, Google, like, just themselves with AdWords and AdSense that has nothing to do with YouTube even before they even started that. They've been a company that have had to fully even keep, you know, the cheating of just ads around the internet in general. And so I think it was a blessing of them coming into YouTube and being the ones that had to serve all these ads, because they had to now make the view as legitimate as possible, because they're just going to kill their own business if they start having the people that are investing to advertise that start being able to see that it's not real or it's not as valuable as they say that it is. So the more that they, you know, are being able to be transparent about what these advertisers are getting for putting their money in and seeing the return, the more valuable it is for them. Now, sadly, of course, you know, and I think that we all see that the idea of YouTube right now investing in the premium channel initiative is like them even hopefully taking an even farther step of being like, we need to make this real for advertisers, because if anything, they've seen that advertisers don't care about what they've currently done so far on YouTube, and so they have to do something to step up the game and even be more legitimate and make the content that they think that bigger advertisers will be coming on board, and that they see that all the content that they've currently been, you know, having people upload is just working into their Google AdWords sense of things and the ad sense, and so they have to even try to make it even. They have to make even more profit and figure out how they're going to make it even more legitimate. Right,
because I mean, in case anybody doesn't know, YouTube is not a cash cow for Google. I mean, ever since they bought them, they have lost billions, hundreds of millions, maybe billions, just lots of money. So they have to come up with creative ways on how they're going to make money, because at the end of the day, they are, like I said, responsible to their Google shareholders. And as awesome and powerful as YouTube is, they hope to eventually start making money off of it.
I mean, is YouTube an advertising platform or a content platform? And how does that question play into the recent sort of redesign and premium content initiative spearheaded by Robert Kinsel? How is that all, like, how is this conversation going to change now that the face of YouTube is starting to change, especially if it's focusing more on more premium content?
It's so new. I don't think that any of us have answers, and even like us who have one of these premium channels, we're not sure either. Like it's a lot of things are in flux right now around YouTube. In terms of the conversation of is it content or advertising, I think it's both, and it probably will always be both.
Just like television has commercials.
Yeah, and you know, how will that be designated?
Absolutely.
That becomes a question of how are you going to designate these types of things together, and I think it's even I'm optimistic in the sense of hoping that the idea of the premium channels will end up having a waterfall effect if it works right, where advertisers will come in, they'll love most of the premium content, and they'll be advertising high dollars against it. Maybe they want to spend more, and they end up trying to realize, wow, there's a real audience here in a way that I never noticed before, because I've been advertising against things that are lying to me about their views, and YouTube maybe is not. And if they're able to start realizing that, it could cascade down to other partners and 2 other people that probably need to be making certain specific types of content. That may be the case, that production values will need to be up for some of them to invest the big dollars. But that, I think, is the ultimate hope, and it may not work. I mean, even as it is, this redesign right now is hugely impacting all the current partners, except for a very select few. Even people as successful as we are seeing a gigantic dip in viewership literally overnight because of these designs. So the hope would be that advertising can catch up to offset the fact that we can't make as much because we don't get as many views now.
So I promise that we will definitely get some Q&A, but before we do that, I really wanted to try to delineate the line. So I'm going to do, it's going to be like a little survey, where I'm going to pitch a technique to you. You tell me if it's ethical or not ethical, okay?
What kind of content are you making?
Is it branded entertainment?
Is it a commercial? Is it a movie trailer? Or is it like someone's video?
It's literally, it's a show.
Okay.
So I get a coder, craft the API, and I start advertising like crazy, and I start playing autoplays all over the place.
Not ethical.
No, not ethical.
No.
Okay. So let's say I
mean, it's also important to distinguish not illegal. On YouTube right now, it's practice going on right now, and will probably happen tomorrow, probably happen next month, and probably happen 6 months from now, because YouTube historically takes a long time to, catch on to things and fix things and tweak things.
Okay, so not ethical. Will it work though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say I don't autoplay, but I basically advertise my video in advertising that you would have to click on to watch. But I saturate it. I put it on the ad exchange. I put thumbnails of my video everywhere.
I'll take that.
We're going
Right.
to talk about that.
Well, right. That type of thing, the user-initiated click, which I'd say that you have places, major websites, that are being able to build their entire platform and their own premium content initiatives based on the idea that they have insanely huge websites, like frequented, that they can guarantee advertisers that I can get a click-through. If I put this here, I can get a click-through this amount for this video, and they're guaranteeing those things to advertisers.
I could advertise on Cheeseburger Network. I could advertise on College Humor. I could advertise and just basically make my thumbnail
really appeasing to the one
that click. Right? I just have to pay. Right.
Right.
Okay.
But like that, for me, I've been waiting to kind of talk
Fair or
about
not
it.
fair?
I think that I would call it not fair with an asterisk, in the sense,
Because I can afford it, maybe someone else can't. So
well, it's not even just that. It's also just the idea that you're still, what is your goal? And I go back to even what type of content is it? Because, okay, if you really are just out there because you just want to claim that you got 1 million views on every video and it's user-initiated clicks, you can do that, but the reality is no one knows who you are. You're getting different clicks every time. No one's a fan of your show. If you ever stopped, your viewership's gone. So depending on who you are as a creator, if you're an advertiser or something and you're just looking to get that number, okay, I could say that's a little bit better than literally auto-playing it when no one even knows it's auto-playing. It's a little bit better, but it's still like, what are you even trying to do? That's not proving any case studies. That's not moving the space forward. That's essentially just a commercial at that point. And I don't think the content creators out there or brands that want to be in the content game want to just be creating these types of things. They want to build audience. They want to have real fans. That is not real fan base.
And for me, that jumps into the idea of that I really hope that we end up at some point having statistics and insight, if we use a YouTube term. I want insight to literally break down every type of view I get. If it's user-initiated, I want it to say that I got 100,000 user-initiated. I want my advertisers, I want my viewers, I want YouTube, I want everybody to know, I want full transparency. It's the only way our space is going to go as fast as possible to know exactly how popular people are, what they're doing. I want every single type of stat because that's going to be way better than television. I think we're going to get more ad dollars and the people that actually deserve to be getting those views and to getting that money to be attributed to those views with your ad, to be an ad on the video. I want to see every type of view that there is to make. I don't know if anybody's going to adopt that idea, but I really hope the future ends up there, that the web is all about full transparency.
How many people agree with that in the audience then? Okay, I know we're running out of time, but I want to roll back. Just follow me here. So, okay, autoplay out. Advertising, asterisks. Paranormal Activity, I know this isn't YouTube, but they did something very smart. They went to Christian blogs and they just dropped their trailer on the forums. And it, of course, they reacted hugely. Got on Drudge Report, which is like an instant explosion in the conservative camp. And that was, they didn't place an ad. They just targeted their audience. They also, of course, targeted people who are into thrillers and sci-fi. What do you think about that? Ethical? Not ethical.
I mean, it's a movie trailer, so I mean,
well, let's say it was Paranormal Activity. Let's say it was your web series was a thriller, and you decided to target blogs.
Well, that's very specifically what we even do. We target blogs. We get featured every week on Huffington Post and like MSNBC and Today. Like we get on those sites, we target them, build relationships, and know that they love our content, and they feature us every week. I mean, so
yeah, I agree. That's part of. I mean, blogs this year really their power blew up. I think because so many people didn't rely, but relied and then also just used blogs as a platform to gain an audience. And I think next year even more that blogs will continue to have this relationship with YouTubers that builds and makes them more powerful. And in turn, they're putting YouTubers' videos up and sending to them. I mean, so many users this year got hundreds of thousands of views off of being on really popular blogs. And I think the danger is, let's hope there's not a payola scandal coming soon of a YouTuber saying, hey, I throw you a kickback if you put my video up on your blog.
That goes on. That definitely goes on.
That's just like grassroots marketing. That's okay. Even though you can pay someone to do the grassroots marketing, or you can pay somebody to.
Where are they going and how are they doing it? I mean, again, if they're just throwing an ad, if they're showing it as an ad on places, that's
no, it's not an ad.
If they're just showing it up, yes, that's what we were just talking about. You can pay these blogs to post your video. But it's still, even at that point, it's a blog that is for that purpose. It's not like a random thing playing. If it's a blog that posts videos, even if you might be paying someone to put it there, it's still a way to be consumed with that someone really wanted to watch it because they go to that site to watch video, not random thing.
And I think there's also transparency of like, not naming names, but there's a difference between saying that you're on a ton, your branded web series is on a ton of websites that have to do with what your show's about, that is sponsored by that type of show, that is what your show's about, and those sites are not frequented by anybody, have no comments on them, nobody interacts, and then start saying that you have millions of views on your show because of those things that you paid yourself to be on, but those sites have no viewership, and yet now you're saying you have millions of views, even though nobody watched it. Not naming names.
I only have a couple more left. I promise. Mark's, give me the look. I know you're restless, but I'm interested in this. I want to create a show, and I have somebody in mind who would be perfect for it. But I decide to instead cast somebody who's got a big, huge audience instead in the role. Basically, like I take a top YouTuber and cast that person, as opposed to maybe the person that I think might be the better fit, because I know I'm going to get more traction because that person's going to promote it. So I basically pay that person. What, is that ethical?
That's just branded entertainment. I mean, if you want to start a web series and have a YouTuber be your star, but I mean that's smart. Yeah, I mean there's a plethora of web series out there that were started by YouTubers, or the creators went to a top YouTuber and said, "Star in my web series," and pushed to it.
I don't think that doesn't compromise anything. I'm just
No,
trying to get a feeling.
you're tying into real audience. That it's like putting a movie star in a movie and saying that because someone loves a movie star, now it's not real because they wanted to see the movie because of him and not because of the movie. I mean, it's tying into real audience versus paying money to buy the view. You should spend that money to someone that can actually drive the traffic, which is really the future of everything. The star system in Hollywood doesn't work as well as it did. You can't give a star $20 million in guaranteed return. There's going to be a time where all these actors are going to be could be even getting roles based on how many YouTube subscribers they have, to know that they have an engaged, real audience that is going to go out to the theater to watch them in a bigger format, because how else do you get people to go out to the theater in the ever-changing platform of media? It's those types of things.
Exactly. That's the only way other projects are going to be successful, is if you take an already set audience and introduce them to other things.
Which again, like the idea of if you go out and just randomly do these user-initiated clicks and stuff from random websites, those people that are clicking on those things aren't people that subscribe to video. Those are random people on random websites. If you actually tap into a user that is popular on YouTube, you're now tapping into their audience that will now want to subscribe to you, and like with what we've always done on our channel, which is that we make multiple shows, if they subscribe to one thing, you can now create other content to go around that.
But yeah, now last one, this is the one I promised is last one, is the network. The shout out taken to the extreme, the alliances, these networks of creators that have extreme popularity and then they bounce that popularity back and forth off of each other. Does that crowd out somebody new who wants to come in and, you know, like that first idea I talked about, well, I'm gonna make my video and I'm gonna let it go, and if it goes viral, then it's good. But like, is there room for that anymore now that there's like mega stars on YouTube?
Less and less every year. I mean, I think it's not impossible, but it's more and more difficult every year for the independent YouTuber to, you know, kind of go viral and without a network promoting them. But also, networks aren't the end all be all. I mean, most networks, I don't know how to say this diplomatically. Let me rephrase that. But you know, networks, they're not kingmaker. You know, that you can't just go to a network. And I mean, there's lots of resources in networks and different benefits and, you know, pros and cons of different networks. But if you think that, you know, as an independent YouTuber, you're just going to go to a network and you're going to sign with a network and bam, you're going to be a big YouTube star, that's not how it works. That's not what's going to happen. I mean, you're going to have a better shot. You're going to have some more resources depending on which one you go to. But, you know, the network is not the end all be all.
I mean, is that where it's heading though?
To help your percentage. To help your percentage, I think that even before there was the idea of networks and then you can actually tap into a system that's supposed to promote you and that's part of your contract, that like that's the whole idea is why you're joining them. There's a whole thing to be done. That's the value add of it. It's kind of like similar to back in the day when we were like talking about more just the science of viral video back like years ago, that, you know, I think that we ended up doing things where like you create the right content and you understand how to market to the right places. You can help your percentage by submitting it to these 100 sites. If you make a comedy video around the time and it's a parody about Twilight, when Twilight is coming out and you know which 100 sites to contact, you can help your percentage of going viral. And I think that networks are only going to help you in your percentage to become a star because you are tapping into this world.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, we're good. 50 minutes. Question time. Mark has got the floor. I hope there's a lot of questions. Good. Okay, good.
All right, guys, this is a meetup, so please introduce yourself, but keep it short in the interest of time. I'm going to go right here and then right here.
Hey there, my name is John Baumgartner. I work for National Lampoon. I had a couple of great questions, but I'll only ask one. So, unless I get another chance, we'll see. Okay, so...
We'll be here for a while after this is over, we can ask them all.
All right, well, the question that I wrote down was, in the end result, don't advertisers need to show the effectiveness of their campaign? You know, so in the end, given there's kind of a crapshoot in terms of marketing, we realize that they're going to throw some money at it. But in the end, if they throw money at a certain website and the views are fake, that is not going to translate into sales. Does that not make a difference?
That's what really confuses me about how the whole thing's going on right now, because you would expect that, let's say, you know, Pepsi comes up with a new product and decides that, you know, instead of just putting up their commercial, because I'm sure they'll make a commercial for the new project, but instead of putting up their commercial on their YouTube channel, or paying a YouTuber to put a video on the Pepsi YouTube channel, or paying a YouTuber to put, you know, a branded video on their channel, they'll go to a company that will deliver, you know, I'll spend all this money to deliver views, but then I look in my sales reports and no one's bought my product. How did that happen? Millions and millions of people saw it, but no one bought my product, and I'm really confused how that hasn't become an issue yet.
I don't work inside that world. I think it depends on the brand and what they're trying to do. Sometimes ROI isn't necessarily what they're going for. It also is just one side of many different things they're doing, and having just a number to be able to then, whether it's their boss or whoever they're talking to be like, you know, the commercials ran on Biggest Loser and we see the spike, but we also got 1 million views on the internet. You know, like, I think it just depends. If it's specific ROI-based stuff, then no way. Those things just aren't going to translate. And I'm sure there's people that have gone into it for that reason and have backed out or tried to find other ways, who knows. But I think that it's not necessarily the end-all be-all for why the brands are doing this. There's specific reasons they each have. And I think mostly right now, sometimes it is just that number.
I think for whatever reason, over time, there's been companies out there that we've kind of touched on that. There's been various companies that the people, I hate to specifically make it about YouTube, but the people on YouTube have been working way harder about actually learning how this space works and actually who are the people that are wanting to watch and how to build that audience. We haven't been the one that's spending our time finding out how to cheat and how to like lure advertisers in in wrong ways and lie to them. We've been working hard to be the people that actually truly innovate this space and show how you build it. And hopefully soon enough, and things like the YouTube Premium channels happening, and YouTube actually allowing some YouTubers to be a part of it, like ourselves, hopefully we're able to really show what the future is going to be and why they want to be advertising with us.
Yeah!
Wow. Yes.
Julie Klein. A lot of us out here in the audience are people who want to produce their own web series, and we're a little confused about how to market it effectively and not do cheating. We don't want to cheat. You know, we went to grade school, we learned not to cheat. So now we're coming to you and you're telling us not to cheat. I heard you talk about blogs and dropping your videos on blogs and how do you identify those blogs? How do you work with an integrated platform and social media, with Twitters, with all the different things that are available? What are some of the suggestions that you can give to the upcoming users of this audience to legitimately market and use the space?
It's a layered question. I think at the core is, why are you doing this? Is kind of the first thing I always tell people. You know, is it to make a living? Is it to just because you want some people to see it? Are you trying to get to television, but you're
Happy
using
with
the web?
1,000 views?
Yeah, is 1,000 views happy? Like it's as Will was saying, it's extremely difficult now, and it always was difficult. It was difficult from 7 years ago, but it's a lot harder now to establish yourself. It's very, very difficult and crowded and saturated. So you need to be strategic, probably as you're starting out, to be thinking, I need to target a specific community. And that's still good advice, and we've kind of followed that model in terms of there's things we really want to make, and sometimes we don't quite make it right away because we realize, you know, this type of thing that's just narrative, doesn't have a niche, doesn't have like a community of people to go to, much harder to get people to find it. But if I make another show that is targeting something specific that still shows who I am, my point of view, you can then shift it back to then watch that show once they're a fan of what you're already making. Okay, so how do you find it? If you know where they are, like the best thing to do, it really is just, there's lots of little things, and it's grunt work. Really, it's grunt work at the end of the day. You're going into Google, and if you think you know, I don't know what your show is, but like you think it's about these types of people, do searches for that person. And
see what blogs have featured videos like yours about that community to specifically know what sites are there that community frequents so that you can specifically contact that community.
And then you do the same thing by going on to places like YouTube and searching for content that you'd consider to be similar to that same audience that you're looking for. Find the ones that have the most views and try to see if they leave their insight on to see if maybe they've been featured in other places. If you can't see that, just take the title of the video, put that into Google, and then see where that was posted. And then you gotta kind of have to look through the site and find that email address of the editor and write the most personal copy-paste email you can find, because you're going to send it to 100 people.
And I'll tell you, I mean, this has been 7 years for us, and you know, we've gotten a subscriber base, so we don't really need to do it as much. But I mean, for the first good 5 years, every video we put out, we would spend, the two of us, literally 24 hours straight, both of us writing hundreds of emails and sending and personalizing and building relationships that have resulted now in us having personal relationships with dozens of major sites that want to even champion us, want to help us, and that we've made a relationship with them. And at first it seems very daunting, but I'm more than happy afterwards if you come up to specifically tell us what is the thing that you're specifically targeting. And I think it always comes back to the idea. Literally, it really, sadly with the web, depending on what the community is, you can use the stable example of the web series community, which is the Guild. Felicia was brilliant in figuring out which community was gigantic and what was booming, and went at that audience, and that's why you see that as the example of like that's a niche that was just gigantic for her to tap into. And she even talks about how she also spent all that time to get in touch with these communities, MMORPG communities that feature her content. And we've been doing very similar things with every show we put out. We're thinking about, well, if this is going to be I guess we'll make a Lost show, a Harry Potter show, a viral video show. It's always thinking, where am I tapping into and how many views? Because you literally will see, based on the idea, you can already guesstimate based on other shows that have been out there, how many views you're going to get, like moving forward. Is it a universal thing that you see on YouTube that gets a ton? Like an epic mealtime of taking food shows to a whole new level because it's so universal? Or are you making something very specific, like, I'm not sure what, like a car show that like, yeah, sure, you might get like 40,000 views an episode. You have to already realize, making that show, you can see how many views you're probably going to be getting based on how you see the temperature of that content is already online.
Hey, hi. It's Spree. I'm really interested in business. So what do you guys do to protect yourselves for your income when YouTube shifts, their redesign, and all the views are affected? How do you monetize your channels in other ways? Do you diversify at all, or do you completely rely on YouTube?
You know, personally, we rely on YouTube, and I wish that I wasn't relying on YouTube as much as I am. I think that there is the elephant in the room for all of us, that the idea that one day YouTube decides, I'm not doing the partner program anymore, and then that's it. You know, we're relying
Shut
on
it down.
Yeah,
Man.
you know, we're relying on a platform. I think that, you know, we're hoping to get into other revenue streams, and there's some of our peers that do an incredible job merchandising themselves. That's not something that our content has worked for, but for others it's been huge amounts of extra monetization. And if you're a musician, there's obviously other ways to be doing this, and even
that do this well.
that monetize well, like merchandise. Well, like the Phil DeFranco is doing, you know, amazing things with merchandise in diverse ways. There's a lot. There's also the Annoying Orange just launched toys all through Toys R Us, which is awesome. And Hot Topic has tons and tons of different YouTube.
And just in the sense of figuring out how to repurpose content in multiple ways, like the Smosh does an incredible job of having a huge website, tapping into the community in an amazing way for years. They've literally paved the way of anybody that wants to figure out how are they going to do it, of having their player in multiple like platforms, not just YouTube, and monetize that. You can look at Smosh's website and how they literally work college humor, and how they almost use YouTube as an advertising platform back to their websites.
Hey Vinny, Rafi,
Hey.
Richard Ryan here.
Hey.
Good question. I think it's important that we don't villainize all traditional marketing and pre-rolls and stuff like that. So if you guys could elaborate on your asterisk, because I think for anybody who has a product that they're wanting to sell this day and age, it's important for them to effectively market it, especially targeting it to a specific demographic. Just a few case studies that I've seen for TrueView, including myself, the Next Up campaign and stuff like that. User engagement for those TrueView ads actually boosted my subscribers because it was specifically targeted to my demographic. So how can a brand really ride that fine line? Because we've talked about like what they do with views, but what about building a brand through marketing and stuff like that?
I think it depends on who you are, and I think the types of content that you make caters to that fairly well. Me personally, with the shows that I make, I wouldn't want to be finding audience through advertising just because we're not as specific and targeted like the types of stuff that you make, and we're much more broad. I think it's interesting, you even could look at, even not from a content place, you even could look at, I guess, Old Spice and what they were successfully able to do kind of falls into the same thing, able to build an idea of a community behind your commercial. I think it's what it is, and even you talking about it, that it was targeted as a commercial and that you tapped into a demographic that would be very interested in that commercial. Like that works if that was the goal. My whole asterisk thing is like, if you're not trying to do that at all, you're just trying to get numbers on something. That's kind of the thing. I think that was what I was talking about before. There's a balance that I think can happen between people that have an established audience that is now working with a brand that now is maybe doing these extra things that may be supplementing the views, but at the same time are still also being utilized in proper ways to also grow the brand. The problem is, how do you differentiate the two right now? And that's what he's going back to, of understanding where the views came from, I think still is important. Even if we could go deeper, and this is going a little deeper, the idea that, well, this many people watch your TrueView ad. Of those people, these people actually came and subscribed to your channel, so maybe these views are now not as important or as engaged as those views, so we would know that, well, these people really cared about this content versus just watching an ad. And it's complicated, it's a slippery slope.
Right, unless you can somehow differentiate the view guy.
Hi, my name is Hunter, and my question is about, are corporations or different kinds of content creators that, for lack of a better word, just have deep pockets, is there just some kind of resistance between content creators like yourself? You built your channel the old-fashioned way, with your ingenuity, your imagination, and all your skill, and now they're corporations or whatever who are just willing to, just the sheer fact that they're willing to drop 50 or 100 grand or something to build up their content. Is that just going to come up against a different idea about who content creators are? I guess, is it legitimate for people to spend that kind of money promoting their stuff, even if it is in legitimate ways? You know what I'm saying?
I can just say, like, even though it feels like, oh, now because we've proven a model that people are now going to come in. I mean, they've been trying, literally, I mean, we've been around for 7 years, and they've been trying from day one to do this. It hasn't, like, hey, I can talk about defunct companies, like, you know, 60 frames, Super Deluxe, you know, every major studio had some iteration of having a digital studio, and they all came and went. Notably also did not work with people like all of us. And they were just like, no, we're going to do it ourselves. And so I see the same thing happening. And oddly enough, like the way that YouTube has changed their homepage, at least right now, it makes it like almost worthless to even buy reviews to get to the homepage, because it's not going to even reward you like it used to from just 5 days ago, from before it was up.
Why is that?
Just the idea, there were so many slots on the homepage. It was very specifically targeted to be about, you went to the homepage, and it was going to show you so many categories, depending on how high you were, above the fold or below the fold. You could guarantee an amount of views from getting there that you would now be able to get.
How do you even get there?
How many to get there?
Like, how would you get?
Well, most views. Most
right,
views
so it's all metric based.
Yeah, 48-hour windows.
Prior to this.
Which is, now when you go there, you can click on multiple things to bring you. You can bring yourself to most viewed on the homepage. But right now, it's actually 3 different things. When you first go to the YouTube homepage, it's I don't understand what the curation is yet. I haven't figured out yet. But I've been getting videos on my homepage that are like from 5 hours ago that have like that do the 304 views, which is the number YouTube like sticks at 313, 304. Then I get trending videos, and I get the most viewed. I get all 3. If I want to pick trending, I can pick trending. If I want to pick most popular, I get most viewed. But if you just go there blankly, you literally get 3 different types of videos now. So it's spreading out this idea of what it used to be. Whereas like if you go to the YouTube homepage, you see what's the most viewed things from each of these categories. And you were able to guarantee a certain amount of viewership. And some people that aren't on this panel today were like using that system to specifically get an amount of views and guarantee to their people, I'll get you 1 million views, which will get you to the homepage, which will then allow for real YouTube views to now play like 400,000.
So because at that point, then it's a little more organic because
the user-initiated view is there.
Right.
Because if you're on the homepage and most viewed, then you're going to be seen by more people, and people, you know, if all you want to do is sell your product, and you get that initial 1 million views to get you on the top lead for 48 hours, and then everyone else sees your thumbnail and your title, even if they're not clicking on it.
Which is where I'm at with the question you were asking. If it's a movie trailer or a commercial or something, I don't personally like that they can buy their way to the homepage, but like to me, I understand that mentality from a movie company or a brand if it literally is the commercial of the movie trailer, because they want it to be consumed like the same way it would always be consumed. It's when it's some other thing that is not a movie trailer that is where the devaluation comes to the idea of, again, a movie trailer, but if you have a show or a video that you're buying views for, you're wasting your money in a lot of ways, because first of all, the community hates it, and no one's really watching it, and what was the point when there's usually no ROI? So
it was also prior to the redesign, crowding out.
Which is why we which is why this conversation is so interesting at the time that it happens, because I feel like if the new homepage and everything kind of launched, we'd be having a very different conversation than what.
Is there a human hand that's now curating the front page of YouTube?
Don't know.
Because I remember Felicia Williams was the. Who knows who Felicia Williams is? I know Liz Miller does. Yeah, so she was the curator of the front page of YouTube. I worked with her at the Daily Reel, and that.
Awesome.
That went the way of.
I was all about that site.
And she went and she curated the front page of YouTube. You know, and it was great because if you know the curator of the front page of YouTube, you can
get your videos featured all the time.
But she was replaced by algorithm, and look at that. That brought YouTube a certain way. You know, and now there's a big change again. So
I mean, it's a much more positive change for the community because it's giving a lot more options to the user to figure out how they want to consume their content. You can pin your favorite channels now. You see, you know, only your subscription feed, and then you know the trending and the popular, and you've got all the categories there. It's just the question of these, you know, now suggested, recommended channels, which Vivo seems to dominate pretty easily, and how that's really going to factor into everything.
Yeah, so long as it's not co-opted. I mean, like if they can really establish an editorial voice, then you can really pay a lot to have that voice promote you in a legitimate way.
I think that the companies that are going to use advertising for views are going to find that this change makes it a little bit more difficult for them.
Pardon?
I think companies that pay for views are going to find this change makes it a little bit more difficult for them, which, props to YouTube for doing that.
Final question from the audience. We will take one from the...
Hey guys, my name is Michel Bayan. I'm the CEO of Mainland Media, digital media marketing agency. We do get views from people, and we sort of pride ourselves on getting real views. We don't do any of the stuff that you guys have all. We're really more in the asterisk space of what you guys were talking about. And before I say anything, I want to say what you guys are doing is great. I mean, you've got the Holy Grail. You've got an organic audience. People are really engaged, and I definitely believe that the big brands don't pay enough value and attention to what you guys are doing. You can really deliver a lot of value to people. But for some of the smaller companies that we work with that don't have enough money to get 1 million views, and they have a targeted email list, for example, of maybe 100,000 people, and they want to make a video and they want to use it as a marketing tool to get out to 100,000 people on their email list, let's say. They don't want to start sending it to that list of people when their view count is at 0. And so sometimes it's worth it to put up an ad to go get a bunch of numbers of views that are not necessarily going to convert, but that will count, because YouTube doesn't count your view if you're only on there for 2 seconds. You have to watch a significant portion of the video. So if someone clicks on an ad and they get to YouTube and they're like, oh, what is this crap? They immediately leave. That doesn't count as a view. They have to actually be engaged enough to watch a significant portion of it, first of all. So then you get those counted views, and you can get your view number up. So that now when you're sending your targeted people in there, there's a perception of these targeted people feeling like, oh, well, this must be good, because you've got that couple of seconds before the video starts to play.
But you're still lying to them.
Real people have seen that video.
But it's not a big deal.
But what you're saying is people have been conditioned to react to the view number
rather
than the content itself.
Absolutely. Which is why people want to go to companies like yours, and I get that. I understand what you're saying.
I wish you would have been up here the whole time.
Yeah.
Fun.
I totally get what you're saying in terms of perception, but again, depending on what you're doing, for me it's still, if it literally is a commercial, I guess I don't care too much, because for me, an asterisk click on a commercial, that's like watching it on TV to me, but if it's an actual show or a thing that they're trying to do, and you're making it seem like it's more popular than it is to fool people into thinking it matters, then I don't like it.
But the viewership number is part of the sales pitch, and it influences the way people perceive the actual content, which is problematic, right? Like you just said, Michelle.
It devalues real viewership.
If someone watches something and it has 0 views, they're going to already hate it, even if they haven't seen it. So that's a predicament, right? How do you get around that while still satisfying the
work with us. Try to go to people that have audience that can even, in a small way, send out a tweet or something and get you some organic viewership that have comments on it that might even like it, and that'll help even more than just getting random clicks that no one engages with.
And actually have the opportunity to get people, because I'd be interested to hear if you've done this multiple times, how many people subscribe to your newsletter from those views that you tried to buy, or you did buy. How many of those people actually now are your fans, and how much are you growing per one? Because that's one of the biggest issues for us, is that these things have proven that you're going to buy 1 million views. The next episode, if you would buy 1 million views, you're going to have 0 views. And there have been multiple cases of web series that have gone and done that, and they stop, and now all of a sudden they have 0 people watching. So I think it even is return for you, ROI for you, of is that also doing something outside of just the perception, like Drew was talking about? If there's more to it, then maybe there's something to that, because you're able to see that it's growing your business.
Our time is up. Actually, we're over time. That is completely my fault. Thank you so much, Joe. Stay tuned for the response panel, which we will be programming for one of our next meetups. Where we're going to have some of the brands. We're going to give them a safe environment so that they can defend themselves. Oh, see, already. I guess it won't be a safe environment. But if you guys can stay up here and take some photos. Thank you very much, and thank you very much everyone tuning in online. And thanks again to our sponsors keeping the web community this positive. Enjoy, and please take some photos over at Snap yourself. It's so awesome. I'm telling you, you're gonna regret not doing it. It's so easy. But they didn't even pay for me to say that. They're not paying me anything. I'm making everything here.